Okay, fifth grade. So I told you guys that we were going to be talking about another song from American history, and that comes from the Revolutionary War. So a couple of quick things about the Revolutionary War before we get into the song. You guys remember that the Revolutionary War began in the 1770s, specifically when the Declaration of Independence was signed in what year? What year? That's right, 1776. July 4th, 1776 to be exact. When the Declaration of Independence was signed, it was sent over to England, who was ruling over the colonies at that time. Yeah, I said colonies. For those of you who don't know, America was known as the American colonies prior to the American Revolutionary War. An interesting little side note, there's a lot of people in England who still call us colonists. I know, right? So when we signed the Declaration of Independence, that kicked everything off. And from there, we fought the war against the British with the French as allies to help us. And with their help, we were able to be successful in creating our first country. Now, how many of you think you know how many colonies became American states at the very beginning of our country? Yeah, 13. 13 was the magic number, okay? So now we're going to move in and talk about a very famous song from that time period. Some of you may have heard it growing up in your childhood. It's been around for literally hundreds of years, and it's got a very interesting history and not quite the history you think it would have, and that's Yankee Doodle. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen so we can talk about that song. Okay, so let's get into the history of Yankee Doodle. Okay, this is going to be a short history. We're not going into all of it. This is a really cool website, Journal of the American Revolution, where it talks about pretty much all things that happened during the American Revolution. It gives you a history behind not only the events, but also the music and the people behind it. Okay, now the first version of Yankee Doodle seems to be written by a British Army physician. Now, he wrote it during the French and Indian War. So a lot of people think that the Yankee Doodle first came about during the Revolutionary War. Well, in fact, it was first written during the French and Indian War, which occurred years before we fought our fight for independence, okay? And it was meant to make fun of us. The British thought we were stupid and slow and all these things. So the first few verses that came out for the song Yankee Doodle actually were meant to make fun of us. So the first verse, as you can see here, basically calls us cowards as Americans, which we know that we are not. And then it talks about how we don't know the difference between buttermilk and vinegar. Again, being very, very stupid. The song continued for several years after that, with more verses being added in the 1770s, right around the time the Revolutionary War started up. And so they became something that the Americans would actually take and start making fun of themselves. Because as you guys know, whenever a bully is making fun of you, it's really hard for them to make fun of you whenever you're basically agreeing with them. They call you stupid. You're like, yeah, I have my days. And then you totally take their power away, which is what we did to the British. When they were making fun of us with the song, we stole it from them and made it ours. And so we started adding our own verses, like this one, Father and I went down to camp, and along with Captain Gooden, there we saw some men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. That's supposed to be a review of one of the Minutemen's first sight of all these soldiers coming together, getting ready to fight the battle for our independence. We scroll down a little bit further in 1775, we see that another verse was added yet again when he visited George Washington for the first time. George Washington, of course, was the general of our army before he ever became our first president. And he is actually mentioned in the song. He's the only president that's mentioned in this, actually mentioned in the song. There was Captain Washington is where he's mentioned. Now, this was before he became a general, and he was a captain, and then he got promoted to general. And then after the Revolutionary War was over and we won and we developed our Constitution, he was offered the first presidency. Okay. And then from there, it's just continued. There's even some verses being added to it during the Civil War, but I want to give you a funny little story. So when the Revolutionary War ended, this treaty was signed between the American colonists and the British at Yorktown in the New York area. So when the British were marching out to surrender, they actually marched with their heads turned toward the French troops because it was American troops and French troops that were lining the streets. And the French, if I remember, I had said that they had helped us. They were our allies during the war because it was in their interest for England to not, or British England, same thing, to not have as much power as they had at the time. So that's one of the main reasons why they helped us. Also, they were going through a revolution of their own, not too far from around that time. And so they saw the need for independence. So that was yet another reason they chose to help us. But they were trying to pretend that the American soldiers did not exist. So the Marquis de Lafayette, which was the commander of the Light Infantry Brigade, he was completely outraged. The Frenchman was like, oh, no, you're not going to ignore our allies. This ain't going to happen. So he ordered the band to play Yankee Doodle. And of course, remember that this was a British song that we stole, turned it around on them, yeah? And with a blast of drums and the fifes, which is a little teeny small flute-like instrument you're going to hear in the recording in just a second. The musicians just hurled right into that song. It was one of the favorite songs, if not the favorite, of the American troops. And a lot of times when troops were marching, you would hear the drummers and the fife players playing this song. It was kind of our unofficial first anthem as an American country. And when they started up playing this song, every British head jerked around and their faces were just staring at their former subjects. And we were just, this American soldiers were like, oh yeah, that's right, bye. So that's kind of the fun history around it. And like I said, the song has been around for hundreds of years and it's been added to over the years. And at last count, some historians have found that there's probably close to, if not just over, 100 different verses to Yankee Doodle. I know that's a lot of verses. Now we're not going to do all those verses, so don't panic. We're going to come over here and we're going to do the first 3 verses. And you can see here the full version. I'm scroll down. If we're not doing all that, so we're just going to focus on the first version here. Okay. So we've got, what I want you to do is you're actually just going to have to worry about the chorus, just like we did with Guru Peas. If it were here in person, we'd be learning the whole thing. But if you know it or you want to sing along after you've heard the first verse, that's totally fine. But I'm just expecting you at home, and I better hear you through that screen, to sing along with the chorus of the song, which the chorus of the song goes, Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy, mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Okay, that is the chorus, and we're supposed to sing it after each of the 3 main verses. Now, these 3 verses are probably the 3 most recognized, most popular verses that's known for the song Yankee Doodle. And you may have heard the first one at some point in your younger days. But you may not be as familiar with the second and third verses. Those are totally fine. As long as you're singing along with the chorus, we're cool, okay? All right, so I'm going to lean over and I'm going to hit play on this, and we're going to jump in. Here we go. All right. Let me turn it up just a little bit. All right, here we go. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony. He stuck a feather in his head and called it macaroni. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, what? Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Second verse. Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Goody, and there we saw the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. All right, and our third one that mentions George Washington himself. And there was Captain Washington upon a slapping stallion, giving orders to his men. I guess there was a million. My apologies. I thought this was going to be the classic verse, this verse, and gentle folks about him. They say he's grown so eternal proud, he will not ride without him. That's the one that they put on this screen, but our verse said, there was Captain Washington, along with, let's see, hold on. There was Captain Washington upon a slapping stallion, giving orders to his men. I guess there was a million. So you can see even a verse that's in there is different from song to song. So this could be another verse. I don't think we see it in here. Let me see if I see one about Washington. No, they don't have that one about Washington in here. Okay, that's totally cool. So we're going to sing the chorus now. Okay, let's jump in and finish it out. Here we go. Yankee Doodle, keep it up. Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Yankee Doodle, keep it up. Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Now I just want you to sing Yankee Doodle dandy. Here we go. Yankee Doodle dandy. And that little flute that you heard playing along with us, that was the fife instrument. It's a flute, but much, much smaller, a few less holes to you do. So think of like a shrunk recorder that you play off to the side. That would be a fife, okay? All right, so what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna display the words on the screen for the first verse here with the music on top, so we can see if we can find a new rhythmic pattern that's in this that we did not see in Goober Peas, or that we haven't seen yet in our studies. So let's see if this line looks familiar. I'm looking at our top line here, and all I'm seeing are what? What is this symbol here? Let me get my little pen going so I can circle it. What is this symbol here that we see all throughout the first line? Yeah, that's a ta. Very good. So I'm going to draw ta right here above it. Forgive me, I'm using the mouse again. It's a little tricky to write with a mouse instead of a pen or my finger. Okay, so I'm seeing nothing but toss here. So let's go to the second line. And I see, oh, there's something different here, but not unfamiliar. We do know what that is. What is that? Yeah, it's a two. And how many beats is a two worth? Yeah, it's worth 2. So we say 2. How many beats was a ta worth? Yeah, it's just worth 1, you guys, okay? All right, so then I'm looking and see, I see a bunch of tas here on the next line. So now let's go down. Okay, I see 2 here, 2 here. That's not unfamiliar, but wait, hold on, stop the presses. What is happening here? That's a really bad circle. My bad, sorry, you guys. That is something new. That is something a little different. Interesting. So what this is, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw, let me try that again, undo all that mess. So that was really bad. Ooh. Accidentally stopped my video, sorry, hey, okay. So I'm going to see if I can draw a ta. I need to go back to my pen apparently. This is not being cooperative today. Okay, I'm going to draw a ta over here and try and shade it in as best I can. Boom. Now I'm going to draw another ta. Now I'm doing this to show you how we get to that symbol with the dot and the one with the flag on it. So right now I have 2 tas. Each one of them are worth how many beats apiece? That's right, they're worth only 1 beat apiece. So now I need to make this first ta. I need to be able to put a dot on it, but before I can do that, I've got to steal a little something. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that ta into a TT. Now, if you remember, we've talked about this TT together is worth 1 beat, but if I were to separate them, they're each only worth half a beat apiece. Okay, that's really bad too. Y'all don't laugh at me. Just let it go. So it's half a beat right there. So what I need to do is I need to make this ta worth a beat and a half. I don't want 1 beat. I don't want 2 beats. I want a beat and a half right in the middle. So before I can add my dot to make that a beat and a half, let me draw them a little half here, see if I can make it 2 a little better. There we go. Oh, that's so bad. Ooh. Okay, so I'm going to actually steal this T right here. I'm going to take him away. I'm going to add my beat. Boom. So now I've got a beat and a half. We call this guy Tay. That wasn't so bad. We call him Tay. Now, wait a minute. I stole that T right here, but I still have this T left over. I can't just ignore him. He's still there. He's lonely because I stole his partner, but he's still there. So let me get my eraser. I'm going to erase all this stuff right here. Let's get rid of that. Get rid of that. Come on, eraser. Okay, there we go. So now that I have this half a beat left that I could not forget about, even though I stole his partner, I'm going to put him back, shade it in as best I can here. I'm going to come up, and because he's all sad and lonely, his little stem is now drooping down into a flag. So that's how I get this. And because this is just one little T, I just call it T. And he is only worth 1/2 of a beat. That's it. Just 1/2 of a beat. So we call this pattern Tay T. So my pattern down here, let me erase this ink here, would be Tay Ti Ta Ta. Now, did you notice, because this guy is only half a beat and I need a whole beat and a half for this first one, it's going to last just a hair longer. So instead of 2, 2, like I see in my first measure on this line, I'm going Tay Ti. So my T is going to come on what we call the upbeat. Tay Ti Ta Ta. Just like that. Okay, so see if you can say that with me. 1, 2, ready, go. Tay Ti Ta Ta. Awesome. Okay, now, how many more of these Tay Ti patterns do I see in my song, the remainder of the song? Look carefully at the last 2 lines. What do you see? Yeah, you see it twice on the next line. We say Tay Ti Ta Ta, 2, 2, Tay Ti Ta. So that would be my pattern here. So now your quiz is going to ask you about that Tay and that T, so make sure you were just paying attention. And mentioning the quiz, don't forget at the end, you need to take the quiz. You can find it in the link down here below in the description for this video, or if you came to this video from my website, you can backtrack to the website and click the link for the quiz, or if you came to this video from Schoology, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page under the link for this video, and that will also, you'll see the quiz embedded into the screen there for week 2 at the bottom of the week 2 folder. So no matter how you get there, please make sure you go take your quiz, and don't forget to put your name on it. I've had a few people this past week that forgot to put their name on their first quiz, and so I don't know who to give credit to for their quiz. Okay, so please make sure you put your name on it as well as your homeroom teacher. All right, okay, so next week we're going to dive into another very important event in our American history that actually took place in between the Revolutionary War and the Civil War. We're going to talk more about that next week. Okay, all right, so I will see you guys later. Bye.